Your gun safe might feel like a treasure chest today, but the truth is some of the firearms sitting inside it are quietly losing value faster than you might imagine. In just the past year, a number of once respected models have seen their resale prices collapse. We are not talking about a small dip either. We are talking losses of 30, 40, even 60% compared to what owners expected to get back. Guns that were once prized, hyped, or even carried long waiting lists are now collecting dust on pawn shop racks and online listings. For many people, this has been a wake-up call. Buying a gun because it is popular in the moment does not always mean it will hold its value in the future. The market changes quickly, trends shift, competition grows, and what once looked like a bulletproof investment can turn into a disappointment. That is why in this countdown, we are going to walk through 10 real examples of guns that have dropped hard in value between 2024 and 2025. These are not obscure prototypes or foreign imports you never heard of. Some of them are household names in the firearms world. Others once built the passionate fan bases, but the resale numbers do not lie. And they paint a very different picture of where these guns stand today. Stick with me, because a few of these shocked even seasoned collectors when the data came out. And if you own one, you might be holding something worth hundreds less than you thought. Let us start off with the Sig Sauer P250. Back in 2007, this pistol looked like a glimpse into the future. Instead of a fixed frame, Sig introduced a modular fire control unit that was the serialized part of the gun. Owners could move that chassis into different grip modules, calibers, and slide lengths. The dream was simple: buy one core gun and transform it from a full-size .40 caliber duty pistol to a compact 9mm or even a subcompact .45 without buying an entirely new firearm. At retail prices around $600, enthusiasts were excited. But the enthusiasm faded once shooters actually started putting rounds downrange. The P250 relied on a double-action-only trigger pull, not a short, crisp one either, but a long revolver-style pull every time. For some who like deliberate and heavy triggers, it was fine, but for the majority who were used to striker-fired pistols from Glock or Smith & Wesson, it felt outdated. The death blow came in 2014 when Sig released the P320. It had the same modular chassis idea, but with a clean striker-fired system that was far more appealing. The P250 immediately became the other modular Sig, and sales dried up. Fast forward to 2024, and used P250s in solid condition could still fetch between $450 and $500 if they came with extra magazines in the case. By mid-2025, prices had fallen to $325, sometimes less, and even then, many sat unsold. That is roughly a 40% drop in 1 year. From personal use and range time, the gun is accurate and reliable, and the modularity does work as promised. But the market has clearly moved on. Buyers who want a modular Sig buy the P320. And bargain hunters chasing a cheap Sig often pick up surplus P226 or P229 models instead. The P250 has no strong aftermarket, no collector appeal, and no real demand. It is a cheap way to get into a centerfire Sig, but if you care about resale value, it is not the one to bet on. Next up, we need to talk about the Daniel Defense DDM4 V7. For years, this rifle carried the reputation of being one of the best factory AR-15s you could buy. Daniel Defense built its name on quality, and the V7 showcased that with a cold hammer, forged chrome-lined barrel, excellent M-lock handguard, and mil-spec internals tuned to run reliably under hard use. This was the AR you bought when you wanted something premium without going fully custom. During the height of political uncertainty and panic buying, these rifles flew off the shelves. Between 2019 and 2021, it was not unusual to see new DDM4 V7s selling for $1,800 to $2,000, sometimes more when demand spiked. Stores could not keep them in stock. But by 2025, the story had flipped. Brand new DDM4 V7 rifles could be found for $1,250 to $1,300 as a regular price. That is a 30 to 35% drop from their peak. And remember, the rifle itself has not gone through major changes. The shift is all about market dynamics. Competition has intensified, with companies like Bravo Company Manufacturing, Aero Precision, and even Palmetto State Armory offering rifles with free float rails, quality barrels, and match-grade triggers for under $1,000. The other factor is saturation. After years of panic buying, the AR market is flooded, political pressure eased, and the urgency to buy disappeared, leaving racks full of rifles with fewer buyers. Performance-wise, the V7 still delivers. Thousands of rounds can run through it without a hiccup. Recoil is smooth, accuracy is excellent, and the gun is as durable as anything in its class. If you bought one to shoot for life, it is still worth every penny. But if you bought it as an investment expecting values to rise, the resale market has made clear that those days are over. Without a major political event or buying wave, these rifles will likely stay in the $1,200 range for the foreseeable future. It is still a fantastic shooter, but not a strong investment piece. From there, we move into the FN FNS-9. Released in 2011, this was FN Herstall's big attempt to break into the striker fire duty pistol, world-dominated by Glock and Smith & Wesson. The company behind the M249 SAW and the SCAR rifle put out a polymer, framed 9mm with ambidextrous controls and a 17-round capacity. On paper, it looked like a winner. In practice, it struggled. The trigger was a little spongy, the reset was not especially short, and the grip angle felt slightly different compared to Glock or M&P pistols, which threw off shooters who had years of muscle memory with those platforms. The bigger problem was aftermarket support. Glock owners could walk into any store and find endless holsters, sights, and parts. FNS-9 owners had to hunt for limited options. That limited appeal for both law enforcement and civilians who wanted easy customization. When it first launched, the retail price was in the $550 to $600 range, directly competing with Glock 17s and M&P 9s that already had long track records. That was tough competition to beat. Today in 2025, police trade in FNS-9 pistols are selling for around $300 to $350. These are not worn-out range beaters either. Many still have factory night sights and 3 magazines with just holster wear. That is a 50% drop in value from original retail. From hands-on experience, the FNS-9 is reliable, accurate enough for duty or defense, and ergonomics are decent once you commit to them. But in a world where Glock still dominates, the Sig P320 skyrocketed, and the M&P series got its second wind with the 2.0, the FNS-9 simply never found a foothold. It is a smart buy now if you want a budget duty pistol that will run reliably, but in terms of collectability or long-term value, the verdict is in and it is staying in the bargain bin. Moving along, we cannot ignore the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield. When it arrived in 2012, it was a major step forward for concealed carry. At that time, the market was dominated by small double-stack pistols that were thick and heavy or tiny, 380s that lacked power. The Shield fit perfectly in the gap. It was slim, chambered in 9mm, had a capacity of 7 or 8 rounds, and still felt like shooting a service pistol. It was such a good design that it dominated sales for years. You could walk into nearly any gun shop in America and see an entire display dedicated to the Shield. Early street prices hovered around $400, and by 2016, Smith & Wesson had sold more than 1 million units. The problem came when Sig dropped the P365 in 2018. Suddenly, shooters could have a micro-compact pistol with 10 or 12 rounds in the same footprint as a Shield. Springfield followed with the Hellcat, Ruger brought out the Max 9, and Glock joined in with the 43X and 48. Overnight, the Shield looked like yesterday's news. It was still reliable and accurate, but buyers wanted the new higher capacity options. By 2025, used first-generation Shields often sell for as little as $250 to $300. That is a 40% drop in value from what many buyers paid just a few years ago. I have carried and shot the Shield extensively, and it still works well. The trigger is serviceable, recoil is easy to control, and with quality ammunition, it is a perfectly capable defensive pistol. But resale tells the story. Values are low and will likely stay low. On the flip side, for new shooters on a budget, the Shield is one of the best bargains in concealed carry today. For under $300, you can own a proven American-made 9mm with a track record of reliability and widespread parts support. Just do not expect it to climb in value if you decide to sell later. Another firearm that has taken a big hit in the last year is the Mossberg 500. This is a shotgun that hardly needs an introduction. Since its debut in 1961, it has been one of the most widely used pump-action shotguns in the United States. It has served in hunting camps, on police cruisers, in military guard posts, and in countless homes for defense. The design is simple but extremely effective, with dual action bars for smooth cycling, an ambidextrous tang safety, and a modular system that lets you swap barrels, stocks, and magazine tubes without the need for a gunsmith. Over the decades, Mossberg has produced millions, with estimates suggesting over 12 million units across the 500 family. The price has always reflected its role as a working gun. In the 1990s, you could buy one new for less than $200. By the mid-2010s, they typically cost between $350 and $400, depending on the model. But by 2025, the used market tells a different story. Lightly used Mossberg 500s, whether hunting versions with long barrels and wooden stocks or defense versions with short barrels, are often found between $225 and $275. That is a drop of 30 to 40% compared to retail prices just a few years ago. The reason for this drop is not that the Mossberg 500 is a bad gun. It is still reliable, versatile, and capable of running for decades with minimal maintenance. The issue is simple oversupply. With so many produced, there are always plenty available on the used market, and that drives prices down. Every gun store has a rack of them, and buyers know they can always find another. From my own use, I can say the Mossberg 500 is tough. It is not as polished as a Browning or as smooth as a Benelli, but it will survive mud, sand, and neglect and still run. If you want a reliable budget shotgun, it remains one of the best options. But if you are looking for an investment piece, it will never appreciate because the supply is endless and Mossberg continues to produce new ones every year. Another rifle that has not held its value well is the Remington 783. Released in 2013, it was designed to compete in the entry-level bolt-action market. Savage had the Axis, Ruger had the American, and Mossberg offered the Patriot. Remington wanted a piece of that under $400 segment, and the 783 was their answer. The rifle featured a synthetic stock with pillar bedding, a free-floated barrel, and Remington's Crossfire adjustable trigger. Many models even came packaged with a basic scope so that hunters could walk out of the store ready to hunt. Accuracy was surprisingly good. Many owners, myself included, saw sub-minute of angle groups at 100 yards with decent factory ammunition. The rifle could absolutely take deer, hogs, or coyotes with confidence. When new, the retail price hovered around $450, though most stores sold them closer to $380 or $399. That was competitive, and the rifle sold well in rural markets. By 2025, however, used Remington 783 rifles are often listed at $250 or less. That is a 35 to 45% drop from what most buyers originally paid. The reason has less to do with performance and more with competition. Savage refined the Axis II, Ruger's American rifle continued to improve, and even budget models from Tikka began pulling buyers who were willing to spend a bit more. The 783 does not stand out in that crowd. It is reliable and accurate, but not exciting, and in the used market, excitement drives sales. For hunters on a tight budget, the silver lining is that you can now buy a very capable bolt action for under $300. But for resale purposes, the 783 is a clear loser. Now, let us turn to the Beretta PX4 Storm. When it launched in 2004, it was meant to be Beretta's modern polymer frame duty pistol, providing an alternative to their famous 92 series. Instead of the open slide design of the M9, the PX4 used a closed slide and a rotating barrel locking system, something unique in service pistols. The idea was that the rotating barrel would help reduce felt recoil by redirecting some of the impulse in a twisting motion rather than straight back. In practice, it actually worked fairly well, especially in 9mm, and many shooters noted quicker follow-up shots and less muzzle flip. The PX4 line included a full-size, compact, and subcompact, with chamberings in 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, and 45 ACP. Some law enforcement agencies adopted it, and it built a loyal fan base. The retail price at launch was around $650 to $700, and for years it held value reasonably well because it was distinct and Beretta loyalists supported it. But the pistol never came close to Glock-level dominance. By 2025, used PX4s in excellent condition are often available for between $425 and $475, sometimes less for well-used examples. That represents about a 30% drop from original prices. The reasons are clear. Striker-fired pistols have taken over the duty and carry markets, leaving hammer-fired designs in a shrinking niche. On top of that, aftermarket support for the PX4 is still limited compared to the ocean of parts available for Glock, SAG, or Smith & Wesson pistols. From extended range time, I can say the PX4, particularly the compact carry versions tuned by Langdon Tactical, are smooth shooting and very reliable. The trigger can be tuned beautifully, and the rotating barrel system really shines with hotter defensive ammunition. If you want something different from the striker-fired crowd and enjoy Beretta quality, the PX4 is an underrated choice at current used prices. But from an investment perspective, unless Beretta discontinues it and nostalgia takes over years from now, the values will not rise. Another gun in this group is the CZ P7. Introduced in 2009, it represented CZ's attempt to bring their popular Omega trigger system from the metal-framed CZ75 series into a lightweight polymer-duty pistol. The P07 gave shooters options, allowing them to configure it as a decocker for double action and single action carry, or as a manual safety for cocked and locked operation, similar to a 1911. Ergonomics were classic CZ, with a deep grip contour and low-bore axis that made it point naturally. Capacity in 9mm was 15+1, while the 40 caliber version held 12+1. The launch price was around $500 to $525, which was competitive with other service pistols at the time. Early models had some minor issues with finish wear and magazine compatibility, but by 2014 CZ had refreshed the design and fixed those problems. By 2025, used P07 pistols in very good condition typically sell for between $375 and $425. That is a 20 to 30% drop from the original street price. The decline is not about quality. The P07 is durable, reliable, and accurate, with many examples running thousands of rounds with no major issues. The decline is due to market shifts. CZ themselves began pushing the striker-fired P10 series, which drew buyers away. Meanwhile, Glock, Sig, and Walther captured more of the polymer pistol market. The P07 still has a loyal following, but it is overshadowed. I have run the P07 in IDPA matches and it handles beautifully. The trigger can be polished into one of the best double-action, single-action pulls in its class, and reliability is excellent. For buyers today, it is a strong value, but for resale purposes, it has already dipped and will not rebound unless production stops. As we near the end of the list, we come to the Ruger SR1911. When Ruger introduced this pistol in 2011, it surprised many in the 1911 community. Ruger had a reputation for revolvers, rimfires, and rugged rifles, but not traditional steel-frame 1911s. The SR1911, however, was a serious entry. It used a stainless steel frame and slide, Novak-style sights, an extended beaver tail grip safety, and a clean Series 70 style trigger. It launched in 45 ACP and later expanded into 10mm, giving shooters options beyond the standard. The MSRP was around $799, but most stores sold them closer to $750. For an American-made 1911 with stainless steel construction, that was a great deal compared to Kimber, Colt, or Springfield Armory models at higher prices. Accuracy was solid, and it developed a reputation as a dependable workhorse. In 2025, used SR1911s in good condition often sell for between $575 and $625. That is a 15 to 20% decline from early prices. Not a collapse like some polymer pistols, but still a hit. The reason is market saturation. The 1911 world is crowded, with dozens of makers competing for the same buyers, and many imports undercut Ruger's pricing. The SR1911 is dependable and enjoyable to shoot, but it is not rare or collectible. Unless you find an early production run or a special variant, values will stay modest. That brings us to the FNX-45 Tactical, a handgun that once carried an aura of being built for elite use. Released in 2012 by FN America, it was essentially a wish list pistol brought to life. The FNX series already offered polymer frames, stainless slides, and double-action single-action triggers, but the tactical model added everything a serious shooter might want. It shipped optics ready with a milled slide for miniature red dots, came with tall suppressor height night sights, and included a threaded barrel ready for suppressors or compensators. Add in an impressive 15+1 capacity and 45 ACP, and you had a package unlike anything else at the time. When it hit shelves, the FNX-45 Tactical carried an MSRP between $1,100 and $1,300, depending on the variant. Many who bought one felt they were getting a unique combination: big-bore stopping power in a pistol that was modern, fully featured, and adaptable to optics and suppressors right out of the box. On the range, it proved to be a soft shooter for such a large caliber, thanks in part to the gun's size and well-tuned recoil system. Standard 230 grain subsonic ammunition ran smoothly and quietly when suppressed, and the tall sights cleared most cans perfectly. With a red dot installed, it could run drills at a pace normally reserved for tuned 9mm pistols, while still delivering the heavy impact of a .45. But in 2025, the resale picture looks different. Used FNX-45 tactical pistols in excellent condition commonly sell for around $950 to $1,050. That is a 20 to 25% drop from original MSRP. For a high-end handgun that is not catastrophic, but it is still a hit compared to the expectations of many buyers who thought the unique features would lock in long-term value. The reason for the decline is not about quality. The FNX-45 Tactical is still one of the most capable .45 handguns available. The issue is that the market has become crowded with optics-ready pistols in 9mm, which are cheaper to run and offer higher capacities. Shooters who once lusted after the Tactical now have many more affordable options that check most of the same boxes. From extended range time, I can say this gun is still a joy to shoot. The double-action single-action trigger is smooth. The reliability is excellent, and the ergonomics, while large, fit surprisingly well if you have average to big hands. Running it suppressed is particularly fun, as the recoil impulse is more of a steady push than a snap, making it easier to keep sights on target. For anyone who loves .45 and wants the ultimate tactical setup, it remains a fantastic buy. But when it comes to holding or increasing in value, the FNX-45 Tactical has already proven it is not immune to depreciation. Looking back over this list, what we see is a clear lesson in how the firearms market really works. Value is not about how much hype a gun generates when it first launches. It is not even about how well it performs mechanically. A firearm can be accurate, reliable, and durable, and still lose half its resale value if the market shifts, competition grows, or if too many units flood the shelves. Collectability and long-term value retention depend on scarcity, sustained demand, and sometimes sheer luck. Take the Sig P250, for example. It was innovative, but the P320 came along and immediately made it obsolete. The Daniel Defense DDM4V7 is still a fantastic rifle, but with a calmer political climate and more competitors making quality AR-15s for less money, its resale price collapsed. The FNS9 simply could not compete with Glock and the P320 when it came to aftermarket support and law enforcement contracts. The Shield was a concealed carry king until the P365 changed the game with higher capacity in the same size. The Mossberg 500 remains reliable, but when millions are already out there, oversupply drags down used prices. The Remington 783 is accurate and dependable, but budget hunters have too many alternatives now. The Beretta PX4 Storm is still a unique design, but the world has shifted to striker-fired pistols. The CZ P07 is an excellent hammer-fired compact, yet it has been overshadowed by newer models, including CZ's own P10 line. The Ruger SR 1911 gave shooters a good American-made 1911 at a fair price, but in a saturated 1911 market, it blends into the crowd. And finally, the FNX-45 Tactical showed what a fully loaded .45 could be. But even it could not avoid depreciation. as the trend moved toward lighter, higher capacity 9mm. If you are holding one of these firearms, it does not mean you made a bad choice. Every gun on this list is still capable and reliable if used for its intended purpose. They will still defend a home, put meat in the freezer, or run reliably in a training course. But if you bought them expecting values to rise, the reality is different. Guns are tools first and investments second, and the market decides which ones hold value over time. Some do become collectible. Others simply become affordable bargains for the next buyer. For today's gun owners, the takeaway is to buy what you truly enjoy shooting and what fits your needs, not just what seems hot at the moment. Resale value is unpredictable, and even trusted names can slide. The firearms world is always evolving, and last year's must-have can become this year's bargain bin item. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you do not miss future deep dives into the trends shaping the gun market. Share your thoughts in the comments too. Do you own any of these models? Have you seen prices crash in your area? Your experiences can help other shooters understand the reality of value in the gun world. Thanks for sticking through the entire countdown, and until next time, stay safe, train hard, and keep shooting straight.